Hello and welcome to the first part of the castle build in Planet Coaster that we will be working on in the next 2 episodes, most likely. This episode is mainly for laying out the overall shape and establishing kind of the proportions of the wall elements, the towers, and kind of the exterior terrain, landscaping, the rough end, essentially. And this building is made up of multiple parts, as it does have angles and different elements onto it. I think all in all, ended up being, like 20 or so different buildings merged together and blended so that we could get the shape that we need. Now, the title of the video obviously says what castle it is. This is Bran Castle, and what that is the Romanian castle where Vlad the Impaler lived. So this, of course, being his castle, it's also referred to as Dracula's castle, is that it's definitely a different castle than one might find in, say, Britain or France, in regards that it doesn't really have a gatehouse. Surprisingly enough, this right here is the entrance, and it just has a few outbuildings attached to the side of the main staircase, and it goes straight into one of the main towers initially here. It's definitely an odd design. I guess either this isn't really made per se to hold a major defense, as the walls don't look quite stone or quite plaster. It's almost like a hybrid type building, almost thrown together haphazardly, and it has a lot of layers to it, a lot of weird design elements to it, and I think it's just kind of a unique enough castle to try and feature in the Renaissance Fair Park this time around. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to recreate the whole thing perfectly. I'm going to have to try and work on with what we have in Planet Coaster to make it at least work, and then also try and make it fit the world of Planet Coaster itself. So we're going to have to be trying to do elements, like there's little juts in the walls, and you can do that by offsetting the wall on the other side of the grid line, and working on foundation pieces using different colors and stonework elements. The main walls of the castle have this really white, plastery look to it. One wall has a kind of a cobblestone look to it. And there's wooden elements on the interior. The exterior is just very smooth, kind of undetailed castle. Everywhere else has these red roofing elements around, and some balconies, but not many, and not many exterior kind of juts sticking out on the walls, which is a little interesting, just because I was thinking about maybe going more fantasy with the castle build, but I was looking at some ideas, and I was either going to do this castle, or the castle that he was actually, Vlad the Impaler was imprisoned at before his execution. That castle had a pretty cool build design elements that I could probably do, like a long bridge over to the main castle itself, which might look pretty cool. But we didn't really have the valley carved out to have a long drawbridge like element or main bridge area to get in. And so I feel like Bran Castle serves as a good, just solid fortress / home like castle. So it's all one giant keep. It does have a courtyard in the center, and the goal is to try and make this using as few separate buildings as possible. Now, to do so, we have to kind of sacrifice some angles of the exterior wall and sacrifice some of the actual design itself. But this is also to keep the frame rate down. I don't want to have a lot of objects, a lot of little things to make everything perfect and then be finished with like a 15 FPS experience, just because we have so much more of the park to do that I just want to try and capture the essence of Bran Castle in today's build. And now the next episode, hopefully, we'll be throwing in some wall elements, decorations, more windows and things. This initial building, kind of the entryway and this upper battlement section, I am putting windows, and this is mainly to help establish scale in the long run. Everything that we add onto this building is kind of going to be based off of this initial corner. Everything else is actually going to be kind of built separately. You can see we're laying down a new building grid here, and this is that cobblestone wall that I talked about earlier. This has no windows. It has some upper story windows and some arrow slits on the upper story, but in reality, this is 100% just a defensive, heavy wall-like structure slapped onto the side of this thing. The walls on this are very tall, very like big flat targets for trebuchets. Luckily, it's up in the mountains, so bringing siege equipment, I'm sure, would be a tall order, and it would be rather defensible just based on location alone. Now, also because these are fairly whitewashed walls, you'll see that we're trying to make the buildings an off-white, the main walls themselves white, and then a little bit of a dull red roof. The actual roofing on the build is probably a little bit more bright red, almost like an Italian kind of roofing color. But I feel like the darker red might go with the Dracula theme a little bit better. It makes it look a little bit more weathered, a little bit more dark, and like it's been standing the test of time for a little while. A lot of chimneys are also featured on this castle, which is going to be interesting to try and capture, as they're almost like haphazardly thrown across the roofing, as castles, of course, being rather cold, as back then, of course, no central heating to be found, there's going to be a lot of fireplaces in such a large structure, and so there's just chimney after chimney after chimney. Like, I'm looking at some of the reference pictures on my left. If you just Google Bran Castle, you can see kind of what we're going for, and just looking at all the different pictures and how haphazardly everything is formed together, and having these little spires everywhere of just chimneys and different elements. In fact, even these reference pictures, there are actually a lot of pictures of this castle out there, but it kind of makes it hard to actually put together, simply because it's such a haphazard build that you can't really read what's going on. There's a lot of little overhangs, walls going into roofing, into more walls, and laid into towers. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and so referring to a lot of reference images is definitely going to help me try and complete this, at least partially. Even this is like the main keep section, at least what I would assume to be the main keep. It's quite this very tall vertical element on the back side of the mountain here. We'll end up bolstering some of the wall with the mountainside itself, but it is really a large flat section. Like, this is a very square castle. I don't know if they've really done many round turrets in this era or not, or if it was kind of a square castle to begin with and they added round elements later on. But obviously, big flat walls, big targets for siege weaponry. So I like just the overall kind of presence of the castle on the map. So it's working out, and these walls are curved inwards. It's almost like a wedged piece just thrown haphazardly into the side here, and that was a little hard to do, to just try and angle everything correctly and make the roof line make some halfway decent sense. And then on the opposite side of this large vertical element is a very large spire-like tower. And then beneath that tower is a large cylinder-like structure. So there's a lot of little elements kind of wrapping in on itself. It has this weird decorative piece on the back end on those large flat sections. And using the arched battlements, I was able to actually try and somewhat replicate those weird juts and they're almost like fake large battlements. I don't know if that's there for decoration or for more of a maybe intimidation factor. Here is the large cylinder going beneath the spire that we built, and these are, of course, you know, we don't have a great way to do large cylinders like this in Planet Coaster. We don't have quite the right pieces, so they're made up of their own little separate pieces, then thrown together at a slightly different angle. And in doing so, of course, our roof tiles are going to overlap in some weird ways. I actually kind of like it because it almost makes it look a little bit more Gothic, a little bit more like a spire. And so I'm okay with how that's turning out. This back wall is another just large flat section that kind of comes in at an angle in sealing off the castle. It's almost like a triangle shaped keep here, and you can see just adding more of those spired chimneys kind of around. There's a whole lot more of those to add in the long run. Now, this build did take a while just to even establish this much, as it's not from my mind, which might have been easier to do just because I don't have to reference some pictures a lot, because I have to get at least some of the main elements to read and be recognizable, so that, you know, people can actually claim that actually looks somewhat resembling the castle that I'm going for. Otherwise, I can't really call it Bran Castle itself. So that adds a little bit of an extra time element. And this courtyard here is actually divided up into 2 tiers, which is pretty cool. I do like that. And the lower element even has a pretty wide staircase that goes down. There's not many good pictures of the interior courtyard and how all these roof lines come together. There's a lot of distant shots of this castle, like just up on the hill or with some snow-covered roofing. But trying to find those good distant shots so I can see just large architectural structures took a while to find, and then also some of them are almost contradictory to each other, where a piece might look like it moves between different pictures. It's just a very shifty castle in general, which is pretty interesting. I do enjoy the challenge, but it's just definitely going to be a 2-part episode on this one, as we spend all of our time here laying this out, trying to use all these grids effectively, because, you know, we're combining these grids and trying to make one large building out of many buildings themselves, which adds a layer of complexity that I haven't really tried to do much in Planet Coaster. This is actually the first large castle build that I've done, so it's definitely interesting, and once you get used to it, it's not too bad to try and combine these grids together. It's just as you keep adding grid upon grid, it becomes a little disorienting in terms of, you know, what grid affects which structure, but just left clicking on things while in build mode kind of automatically highlights the building you want to work on anyways. So over time, you just get used to it. It's not that big of a deal, just something to keep in mind if you guys plan on doing such a large build yourself. This area here by this spire, not many great pictures of it, how all these roofing kind of hit together, so that area is pretty much fudged a good bit just to at least make it look somewhat accurate with some of the walls there. There's also a really cool kind of balcony elements going around the whole inner courtyard, which looks lovely. This is the main area that's going to have some wood trim going along, almost like a normal Dutch structure. So this building is just an amalgamation of just shapes, boxes, grids, and colors, and it just has a lot of character to it. So that's why we definitely chose this building over some other ones. And in doing so, also, I think, because it has just these 2 large spires, it and it's spread across such a wide distance that is the main thing that people might be seeing in the lower area. The upper area, it's kind of blocked by the main town, but once you go into the backside where like the jousting ring is going to be and some of like the archery ranges and throwing knife ranges and things like that, it's going to be quite the sight to behold, I think, in there. Now, I'm thinking about trying to do some stuff with the interior. I don't know what yet, though. I could try and put some shops, run some loose pathing into the courtyard just so it looks like people can access the building, as I do enjoy having as many buildings as possible to have peeps go into them. And so that's something to consider. I'm, of course, open to any idea you guys have on what it might be, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because you have to go up and then down into this courtyard. The way the courtyard works, you'll go into the main tower and then you have to go down into this lower area. So some things might not fit. It'll be a little bit of a challenge. So I think that's going to do us for the speed build section. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this at real-time speed so you guys can kind of get a better sense of the overall scale compared to the other buildings we have so far. And then we'll end the episode there, and then next time finish out some more detailing. Alright, so let's have a look at the Bran castle build so far. I'm going to be redoing the path here just so we have something that fits and doesn't clip quite as much into the castle itself, as that can be a little annoying. I can't even put trash cans on the slope to even control the crowd that way, so that's going to be having to be addressed sooner rather than later. That's something I think I might do first in the next episode. Obviously, a lot of little details need to be happening around the mountainside. This is currently the terrain, loose terrain sculpting along the back end. You can see it has these very large flat areas. There are some jutting out areas. This has a small jut out section. I tried to do that here using just walls on the different side of the grids. This back piece here is very ornate, and so that's something I want to try and capture at least somewhat with some of the pieces that we do have. This back area here, I want to try and figure out a better way to get this roof covered up. I might try something new in that section. A lot of different colors going on. I'm fine with these little V cuts into the roof here. It's not really that much of a bother at this moment. We'll see if it might affect any window placement later on, but right now the overall profile I think is fairly accurate. There is some that might need worked on. I think this corner here needs to kind of come out a little bit more, kind of enclosing more onto the main courtyard down below, and you can do that easily enough just by adding a new building in this section, just slightly angled compared to these two pieces and merging them together. It has a pretty ridiculous chimney on like the front face of almost the main keep section. Here are the little upper kind of decorative pieces on the wall. Again, I don't know what that was there for at all, concerning it didn't look like there was any footpath for like to be used as battlements. In fact, this whole side has no battlements. Quite the steep cliff though, so maybe they didn't have to really worry about the army coming up on that side, and really they could only get away with defending the main entrance, as that was probably the easiest and best way for any army to attack this structure. As I said, no windows on this kind of cobblestone wall here. It did have some little jut out sections and some arrow slits though, and this upper balcony, I really like it. It's definitely a unique shape compared to something that I might think of. And in fact, this whole building in general has quite the unique shape, and it's been a little bit of a charm to make. So let's see how many pieces we're up to so far. We are up to 1,980 pieces spread across 33 buildings. So definitely a large build, not something that you guys are going to see on the workshop unless I try to upload everything almost individually. Like the front 2 pieces I might be able to do, and then the back couple pieces, if I highlight things kind of correctly, I might be able to get away with. Who knows? Anyways, I think that's actually going to do us for this episode. Next episode, as I said, we'll decorate everything, make it look really nice, throw in some rocks, some trees, kind of seal it in, give it a place to nestle and call home into our park. And I'll go ahead and leave you with just a pulled back view so you can see the overall scale of that castle compared to the rest of the park we've finished so far. And if you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Go ahead and watch out for those other episodes so you guys can see how all of this was built if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in a new episode of Planet Coaster here soon.